to remind us about the plight of people in Central and Eastern European countries, would you please welcome Pride Solidarity lesbian activist Claire Dimian.
Look, have we got any light up here? One of my Latvian friends works in a bar in Soho. He's been beaten up too many times to remain in Latvia. At Moldova Pride, I witnessed the injuries of a gay man released by police into the waiting fists of homophobic thugs. The activist in Western Ukraine told me of the frantic calls he receives regularly from gay men who have nowhere to turn after they are released from police custody. This week, another young gay man remains unconscious after an attack in which he was almost killed. At Bucharest Pride, I could feel the young man sitting beside me uncontrollably shaking with fear. At Sofia Pride, even I could understand the Bulgarian graffiti, "Death to queers." In Warsaw, that funny little smoke-making device was in fact a Molotov cocktail. And I took a very deep breath before coming out to the waiter who asked me why I was in Belgrade. In Budapest, I stood meters behind a woman screaming abuse at an empty building she believed was filled with queers. She couldn't imagine that the group of women milling around her were in fact lesbians. And yet, despite the risk, after the shooting in Tel Aviv, vigils took place in Warsaw, Gdansk, Bratislava, Budapest, Riga, and even in Moldova. Courageous LGBT people and their friends risked their own safety to show solidarity with the dead, injured, and bereaved. It isn't too much to say that a young Arab gay man from one of the most conservative Islamic regimes risked his life to show solidarity with Israeli LGBT. A Slovak friend of mine, who often wears a kilt around Bratislava, told me with eyes shining what it meant to him to have the rainbow flag hung out of the window at the British Embassy. When I am beaten again, it will be bearable. I know my government doesn't care about me. I know the British can't do anything, but it will be bearable because they care. We are here because we care. And it is my privilege to bring you greetings of condolence, of love and of solidarity from LGBT people and organisations from across Central and Eastern Europe. In the angry but dignified slogan that rang through the streets of Tel Aviv, Kolano, Bayachad, Bli Shnia, Bli Pachad. All of us, together, without hatred, without fear.
Can I just say, if you would like to place a candle down at the front, we'd really like that. We'd like you to not set fire to somebody on the way to doing it. But if you do want to come down and give us a candle to a steward, we're going to make a sort of carpet of light here at the front. And can I also just say, as a Scandinavian person, how thrilled I am that IKEA this evening have given us the candles. We do what we can. Now, just take a look at that beautiful church that's over in the corner there. That is, of course, St. Martin's in the Field. My great-grandfather was christened in that church, and there was a misunderstanding at the christening, and he ended up with the name Field. Completely true and slightly random. Would you please welcome a priest from St. Martin's in Field Inclusive Church. It is the Reverend Claire Herbert. lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, and intersex people come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and I am one. So it was that I was the Church of England parish priest of Soho when David Copeland dumped his nail bomb, filled with human excrement, under the counter of the Admiral Duncan pub, and then waited around the corner on my church steps to see if it would go off. It did, of course, go off, and my life was changed. April the 30th, 1999 was one of those spring days which sees Soho swarming with folk having a good time. I left town mid-afternoon, almost sorry to go. At 6:30 that Friday evening, when bodies were writhing in agony on Old Compton Street, I was watching rabbits and hares playing in the sun of the Sussex countryside. I had been the rector of Soho for 6 months, and this was my first breakaway with my partner. We learned what had happened the next morning over breakfast. Utterly devastated, we turned the car around and headed back. When we arrived back, we found that Andrea Dykes, John Light, and Nick Moore had died the night before in the blast, and dozens of others had been seriously injured. Still others would be badly traumatized. But it was in the years to come that we saw played out the full and devastating effect of homophobic hate crime. Those deeply disturbed would lose well-being, income, friends, jobs, lose Soho, unable to venture back. While infections caused by the bacteria, firmly embedded in the excrement of the nail bomb, led to everlasting pain and finally amputations for the worst affected. The barman in the Duncan that night, David Morley, had been standing over the bomb. Cinders did a remarkable recovery job, although those who knew him best knew that there would be no complete recovery. He was a much beloved figure, a secular pastor to Old Compton Street. So Soho scarcely knew what to do with itself when he died, the victim of yet another homophobic attack some years later on the South Bank. If anything, this death hit us even more deeply. Had nothing improved. I realised that our leaving Soho, as I did 2 years ago, I didn't want to forget. I didn't want to become part of a wider church which by its silence and lack of protection of gay people institutionalizes and fuels homophobia. I had seen enough. I wanted instead to become part of the solution. I work now for a charity called Inclusive Church, which is dedicated to the eradication of homophobic attitudes within the national and worldwide church, and works for the setting aside of all our sexist and racist attitudes as well. It is, as you can imagine, an uphill struggle. And I'm proud to represent that charity and St. Martin in the Fields, where I work as a priest, and where the rainbow flag is flying in our support tonight. It flies because many people there, like me, are longing and working for change. Yet just outside our church's boundary, Ian Baynham was brought to the ground. Has nothing changed? Change. The change that's going to bring an end to homophobia and to homophobic hate crime begins with me. Begins with us. Our hearts and minds. Our homes. Our streets. Our schools. Our churches. Our clubs. Our political parties. Until those who would commit such crimes have nowhere to hide, no words given to them to use, no protectors to support them, no place to go, and no reason to go there. We have to learn to be brave enough to stand up and name this hatred for what it is, to take it seriously, to believe we deserve better, to make change happen. My life has been changed by seeing what's happened to victims of homophobic attack. My eyes have been opened to the full effect of homophobia in myself, in my church, and in society. And I want to invite all of you, whenever you have a moment tonight or in the days to come, to speak to each other about how homophobia has affected you. It does matter that you speak. Speaking out, speaking together, will give us the energy and vision for change and honour Ian and all those who've lost their life in such a senseless way. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered and intersex people come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and I am one. Who are you? Let us share our stories and create the energy and the vision for change. Thank you.
How do you measure a year in